Welcome one and all to Everything Under the Sun Belt, a college football podcast. I'm your host, Brady Michael, along with
Easton John.
And we're back for episode 2 after a little bit of an incident a week ago. But we're going to keep this train on the tracks. It was only derailed. We might have got off a little bit. But this week, we're going to look back on week 5 in the Sun Belt, review some of those games. And we're going to look ahead to the 5 games that are taking place in week 6. And then for our final segment, we have decided on a wheel spin, and we'll get into that and see what it happens to choose for us to debate on. But before we get into it, you can follow me on Instagram at Brady_Michael, Michael, with the I replaced with a 1, and over on Twitter /X at BMichael with Michael the same way. Easton, you're getting your Instagram pulled up. Where can we find you?
You can follow me on Instagram at Easton.John_. That's EASTON.JOHN_.
And you were telling me before the episode that you've learned something about your Sun Belt championship prediction. Do tell.
Yeah, I thought only James Madison couldn't make it to the Sun Belt tournament last year, but now they can't this year. That's interesting. I thought it was just 1 year, but I guess it's 2. But you know what? Deep down in their heart, I'm going to still go James Madison. It'll be an asterisk, but I love James Madison this year, but I think Marshall might have my vote this year.
At this point, we'll get into them here in a second. We're going to start off with the first game that we thought would probably be a bring your lunch pail kind of game, and that's App State and ULM. We thought the under was a safe bet, and boy, if we were to bet the house, we would have been homeless because App State 41, ULM 40 down there in Monroe, Louisiana. You look at App State's quarterback play. Aguilar, he went off 335 pass yards along with 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. And then all of a sudden, ULM has this quarterback, and he is a graduate by the name of Jair Wright. Little dude, but he threw for 268 pass yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 pick in his first start this season. And you want to know a random fact about this guy?
What's up?
He's a freak athlete.
Why is that?
Hold on, let me find his weight. Yeah, 6'1", 205. He squats 440 and benches 330 pounds.
Jeez, call him Saquon Barkley.
I know, but he's just a little white quarterback.
Yeah, seriously.
That's so crazy, but he's got some speed to him. It turns out ULM has some juice at the quarterback spot, and maybe that can spark their offense going forward because they did not average but like 90-something yards per game.
Right, and in the episode that we recorded that will never be released because of the audio, this game this game, we said it was going to be a defensive game.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, were we wrong. I mean, this was a back and forth matchup the whole game. I mean, 14-14 first quarter, 14-14 in the second quarter, and they're just going back and forth. And turnovers were bad in this game. I mean, App State had 2, ULM had 1. It just came up to who was going to blink first and who was going to flinch. And App State hit him with a knockout punch.
Yep, App State ended up winning this game from a 54-yard walk-off field goal as time expired. Mm-hmm. And both teams combined for over 1,000 yards in this game. And looking at the next game, that was also the case. 1,026 total yards between Texas State and Southern Miss. Texas State walked out of Hattiesburg with a 50-36 win over Frank Gore Jr. And this game, despite what the score says, was not close. Texas State had a 42-10 lead at the half. G.J. Kinney's offense just dominated Southern Miss defense in this game. You look at T.J. Finley, 338 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, and his third game this season of 90-plus QBR, despite how much you keep telling me that you don't like him as a quarterback. But this game started off brutal for Southern Miss. Ismail Mahdi, which I figured out how to pronounce his name, he returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and that really set the tone in this game. You look at Southern Miss quarterback Billy Wiles, less than 50% completion percentage, and then Frank Gore Jr. limited to just 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. I know.
Limited.
You can put air quotes over that. His yards per carry was somewhere around 5. I think you have that pulled up over there.
Yeah, 5 yards per carry.
Yep.
But hey, Rodrigo Clark, 10 carries, 83 yards, and an average of 8 yards per carry. So
he keeps that average up.
Yeah, he keeps going.
Only 10 carries.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We're just might need to put some sad music every time we mention him just because we feel so bad.
Yep.
And then one of the odd matchups over the week, Minnesota hosted the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. They walked out with a 35-24 victory over the Cajuns. Minnesota, they only had 14 pass attempts opposed to 51 rush attempts. And then their quarterback with the great name, Ethan Kalik-Manis, 146 pass yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Minnesota did not get a sack. They only had 1 TFL. And yes, Louisiana could not take advantage of this game. Their quarterback, Zion Chris, still developing. He threw 2 picks in this game, and that was really what led to the loss in this one,
right?
As well as the lack of physicality, because Minnesota's offensive line is always going to be full of bullies just because of where they're at.
Exactly. And when the D line for Minnesota ain't getting it done, then the DBs are, man. 2 interceptions. That's how you win ball games right there. And I think that's basically how Minnesota won this game, is getting those 2 picks.
Yep. And nothing really crazy in that game. It was a lot of defense, but still a lot more points that came out of it than you would have expected.
Right.
And then moving away from defense, Marshall, I thought that they might have had a walk in the park, as did you.
Yes.
With Old Dominion, and they only won by 6, 41-35 against Old Dominion. It was Marshall's homecoming, so I've heard. And I see what I did there.
Yeah, I saw what you did there. Yeah, I said that this was going to be a walk in the park for Marshall, and Old Dominion just comes out of nowhere. And I think I said this during our last episode. I was saying Marshall could get caught lacking at any point in time. And they showed it through past weeks, and it really showed right here against Old Dominion, because this game should have never been close.
Right. And again, mentioning the episode that will never be released ever and will be forgotten about, I said that Old Dominion will probably sell out to stop Rasheen Ali, their running back, and he got limited to 2.8 yards per carry.
That's crazy.
He did exactly what I expected him to do. And then you look at Old Dominion's linebacker, Jalen Henderson, 16 tackles, 2 TFLs. There's no way to stop that stone wall that he is.
And that's just him being involved, being involved in every play, wanting to help the team. And that's your captain on defense right there. It
is. And then you look what Old Dominion introduced to the world. Apparently they've been sitting on this guy. His name is Kadarius Callaway, former Alabama player, transferred out to a junior college, and then he found his way to Old Dominion. 11 carries, 236 yards, and 3 touchdowns. It's an insane stat line, and that comes out to 21.5 yards per carry. He had 25 yards coming into this game all season. So maybe that's a guy to keep an eye on. I don't think Arkansas State plays Old Dominion, so we don't have to worry about him, but maybe he can play spoiler for some of those teams in the East out there. It almost worked for Marshall.
Hey, I mean, as long as Old Dominion has something in their back pocket, that's pretty good to have.
It is, but that's assuming he doesn't transfer again after the season's over. You look at Georgia Southern. They pulled off a win over Coastal 38-28, and it was no thanks to Coastal's quarterback Grayson McCall. 300 passing yards, basically, 299, 1 touchdown, but then you look at those interception numbers. 4 of them, 1 of them was at the very end of the game, so realistically he threw 3, and it was just tough. He got a lot of pressure put on him. Not a lot of sacks were given up, but he was just making bad decisions when pressure was in his face. This
year has been tough for him this year. Are we seeing a decline in him this year, or what's going on? Because, man, he's just been not performing as well as he has in past years,
And I think a lot of that can be given to the fact that his head coach is now at Liberty.
Exactly, yeah. And
Jamie Chadwell.
That sucks. I mean, when you have someone that brought you in and they leave you, and you're just like, the scheme isn't there. It's like when Brady and Belichick moved away. Brady stayed really good.
From McCall.
Yeah, that's how it is. Brady stayed good, and Belichick just went downhill, and McCall is going downhill.
He is. He was used to that offense that Jamie Chadwell runs. It's not coming to mind, but they run a lot of option, speed option, triple option, wishbone type thing, because Grayson McCall at his core is a running quarterback, and under this new offense that he's a part of, it's just not been the case.
He's been forcing a lot more passes, it seems like.
He has, and he does have one good target, Sam Pinckney. In this game, 7 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown, former Georgia State wide receiver.
But you can't always rely on that one person, though. You have to be able to spread the ball around and make sure that you're hitting targets other than him. So
Yeah, and that can also be credited to one of his better targets, Aaron Bedgood, transferred to Liberty with Chadwell. Just a lot there, and you got a feel for Grayson as Coastal going from one of the top teams in the East to maybe one of the bottom. And before I move on, Davis Brin, another 300-yard passing game and 3 touchdowns. So just keep your eye on him. I think he's first in the Sun Belt in passing now. Get into some of these bigger games in the conference over the weekend. Troy and Georgia State matched up, and Troy walked all over them defensively, winning 28-7 over the Panthers. And Darian Granger, after we hyped him up in episode 1, we've had a few weeks to keep an eye on him. It's not been the same guy.
Troy's defense has always been very dominant. And I think that, in the coming weeks that they got, or the coming players, God dang it, the coming games that they have coming up, it's going to be a defensive game.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And you look at the offensive scheme that they had, only 3.4 yards per carry as a team for Georgia State, and they also could not get pressure on the quarterback, no sacks in this game, which is a problem because Troy's quarterback, Gunnar Watson, he'll sit back there and be a statue if you really let him. 258 pass yards, 1 touchdown to 1 pick, and then they held Georgia State under 300 yards of offense, the first time that they've been held under 300 yards this season. So that's a little bit of a shift behind JMU in the East because I thought Georgia State might have been that second team.
That's what I was thinking too. I thought Georgia State was going to be one of those teams that was going to be dominant throughout the year. And then Troy just comes out of nowhere because we were kind of dogging on them in past weeks about them not, showing up. But now this week, their defense comes alive and only allowing 7 points into halftime. And then guess what? 0 the rest of the game. I mean, that's crazy. That's not even getting past the 50-yard line. So, man, it's crazy though. But some things that I noticed were in the first half, Troy could not finish a drive.
No, they couldn't. They could have won this game a lot more than what they did.
And realizing that is why I'm still not gonna hold Troy to that pedestal yet. I'm not gonna. I have to see their offense dominate. Defense wins championships is what we've all been saying.
Not in the Fun Belt.
Not in the Fun Belt. It's a quarterback-driven league. If you don't have that quarterback that's gonna lead you down the field every quarter and get you some points, I don't know what's going to happen.
I'd argue Gunnar Watson can do that, but I don't think their offense is letting him do it. We'll move on.
The surrounding people you're saying.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, they have some good skill position players. They got some old players out there, but you look at James Madison. They had their first home game since week 1. They ended up beating up South Alabama 31-23, and South Alabama almost made a comeback in this game. They had a chance to drive down with about 1:30, and they couldn't quite pull it off. I believe James Madison had like a 31-10 lead at half, somewhere in there. You look at their quarterback, Jordan McLeod. He's starting to take over for Dorian Granger in that conversation of maybe best dual threat quarterback in the Sun Belt. He had 241 pass yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 61 rush yards. And then they had a breakout game from their tight end, Zach Horton. 3 catches, 116 yards, and 2 touchdowns because watching film of that game, no one could tackle him for some reason. They would get him the ball in space, and he's a chunky tight end, and they would try to go low on him to get him to the ground, and they would just bounce off of him. It was just sad.
The one thing I noticed from McLeod is that, he was great with the deep ball in this game.
He was.
66-yard pass, holy cow. McLeod also, he's precise with his passes, but man, when he cannot go, he threw for almost 50% that game. That can't happen. But you know what? Whenever he made a pass, he made it count. So
he did, and a lot of those incompletions did come in the second half, which allowed South Alabama to kind of grit and grind their way back into it.
And you got to play all 4 quarters. You can't just play 3. You got to finish in the 4th.
Yep. And you look on the defensive side of the ball, we know James Madison has that tough defensive line. They picked up 5 sacks as a team. And then this dude named Jalen Green had 2.5 sacks, 3.5 TFLs, and he also got a pick 6 as a defensive lineman. It was a ball that was tipped up in the air, and you ended up with a big man touchdown.
Big man touchdown. You got to love to see it.
You do. And James Madison, they're going to be rolling into a bye week before they play Georgia Southern in week 7. So keep an eye on that. The last game we're going to get into here from week 5 is Arkansas State. They made the trip up to the rainy and very depressing UMass Minutemen. And
Yeah,
It didn't take a minute for Arkansas State to get out to this lead.
Seriously. And, I wish that we released that last episode because I was saying, why is this game a 2-point favorite in favor of UMass?
I think it's just bettors didn't have enough tape on Arkansas yet.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough confidence in the freshmen.
Exactly. And this game was near perfection for the man, Jalen Rayner. 383 passing yards with a 93 QBR. That's nuts.
Yep, 20 of 25 if you want to get specific on completions. And I believe he did set a record or tied a record. 6 passing touchdowns as a freshman.
I think he tied in a franchise record for most touchdowns in a game.
And I did see a list, and I'm not going to remember who was all on it, but there was 4 total quarterbacks who threw at least 6 touchdowns as a true freshman in a game.
Yeah.
One of those players is Patrick Mahomes. Another one is Caleb Williams. And then the next one is not in my brain.
Justin Herbert.
Is it Justin Herbert?
It's
okay.
Justin Herbert.
Well, then number 4 is Jalen Rayner.
That's crazy. That's a great group of people to be with.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
No kidding.
Yeah.
And then you look at the guys that helped him get it done. Adam Jones, a little bit of a breakout game, 3 catches, 105 yards. Jeff Foreman, shout out to my classmate, 2 catches, 65 yards, 2 touchdowns. So every time he caught the ball was in the end zone. And then defensively, Javonte Mackey showed up, 8 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 TFLs. And this game was never really close. I believe it was about 31-10 at the half. And for UMass, Tyson Full. I think I butchered his name last time, and I thought was 100% confident in it. But then listening to the radio call, it's Fomachan. Tyson Fomachan. He came in, 269 pass yards, a little bit of desperation mode, probably got some more of those in there. And then you look at Anthony Simpson, their wide receiver that we had discussed might be an issue for them to slow down. 7 catches for 33 yards.
Yeah.
So they did exactly what they needed to do. And maybe Jalen Rayner's passing game is finally exposing the weapons that Butch has had in the arsenal that other quarterbacks have not been able to find.
Seriously, Adam Jones, where did he come from?
We knew he was there.
And it's not like the thing is that they're not. They have 4 catches. That's the most a receiver has on this team.
Yep.
4 catches.
Distributing the wealth.
Yeah, exactly. You're distributing the ball. You're letting your teammates get involved, but also you're utilizing the run game. And that's what I want to point on is Jaquez Cross and Zach Wallace is a great dynamic duo. They're the yin and yang. They're going to knock you out anytime. I think Zach Wallace is more that, bulldozer you're running.
He is. He's your thunder.
And Jaquez Cross is your shifty guy. And those two are going to do some damage.
They are, and we might have a shift of expectations to talk about, moving the goalposts, so to speak, but we'll get back to that. Easton, we have a Week 6 preview to get into.
Yes, we do.
You want to start off with the early game? Maybe, I thought about putting this as the game of the week, but since it's not a Sun Belt game, I didn't want to do it. But you got Marshall. They're going to be marching into NC State territory. They're 4-0, NC State 3-2. They're sputtering. This is a 1 o'clock game on the ACC network, and NC State opened as about a touchdown favorite. The big storyline in this game, if you've seen, is NC State, they're benching quarterback Brennan Armstrong after he only had 122 pass yards against Louisville, had 3 turnovers. And then there's a quote directly from Dave Doran, their head coach, says, "It's clear that we need a spark on that side of the ball and that MJ Morris is going to take over as our starting quarterback. He is ready to lead the offense."
That's a bold move by NC State. I can't believe this game is at a 6-point favorite. I would say it's a 1-point favorite because I think Marshall has all the momentum to destroy a backup quarterback and come into NC State and get the job done.
I think a lot of it from that line lies on, you saw Old Dominion was able to shut down Rasheen Ali for Marshall last week. If Old Dominion can shut down your running game, NC State can 110% shut down your running game. They have a defense. You look at Peyton Wilson, that linebacker on the defensive side. He leads the charge for them, and they have a dominant defense. They just have an offense that hasn't quite figured itself out yet.
Right, and Marshall's defense can get a little dicey with yards allowed as well.
Yep.
They're known for giving up chunk yards and times that they don't need them. So hopefully Marshall can cut that down.
Yep, and a little background on MJ Morris, former 4-star kid out of high school, And he started a game against Virginia Tech in 2022, had 265 pass yards and 3 touchdowns, and he also had 210 with 3 touchdowns against Wake Forest last year as well. So he's got experience against ACC teams. He's got legs that can cause a problem for Marshall's defense. It's going to be all about how much pressure he feels.
Right, and I think Fancher, he averages an interception per game.
Mm-hmm.
I think in this game, you can't have those today.
You can't, and there's also rain expected in this game.
So, and man, I don't know what the game plan is going to be for Marshall, but, I mean, they're running the ball. I trust them.
Yeah, I say my game note says establish the run or die trying. So that's what we'll be on the lookout for. Move down, another really good Sun Belt game, Texas State. They're 4-1, 1-0 in the conference. They're going down to play Louisiana, who is 3-2 with their first game in conference against Old Dominion. That's a loss that they took in week 1. This game, ESPNU 2:30, and Louisiana opened as a 1.5-point favorite.
That's crazy.
Much to my disagree, I guess.
I would have to disagree too. I think Texas State's got all the momentum in the world right now. They can go into the Raging Cajuns and kick the crap out of them.
I think they can, and a lot of that's because of what Louisiana just dealt with a week ago. They're going to be coming in a little beat up at the hands of Minnesota, and it's going to be, can they get up early in this game and not be a sufferer of a slow start? And that's when I look at that over-under. It's at 67.
That's crazy. It's going to be a high-powered offensive game.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think Louisiana's defense has enough to limit Texas State. I just don't think Louisiana's offense is going to have enough to wake up. And I could be wrong because it could be an explosion in the second half that, honestly, the second half alone could get that over.
Mm-hmm. But I think Finley, great quarterback this year. He has established himself as a leader of the team.
When he's protected.
Exactly, when he's protected. And I think that they have all the momentum in the world, like I said, and they can definitely get the job done. Again, it's a quarterback-driven league, and when I'm looking at the two quarterbacks right now, Finley and Chris, I'm leaning more towards Finley right now.
I'd say he's about 2 tiers above him. You look at what I think Louisiana might do offensively. They're going to have to get that run game going with Chris being the dual threat that he is. You have Jacob Cabote on the ground, 376 rush yards this season, which is 9.4 yards per carry is where he sits at. And then you have Draylon Washington, who has 227. We've discussed our issues that we think they might have in the running back room, but they have 2 guys averaging over 7.5 yards per carry.
That's crazy.
So they have some weapons in there. They're going to have to use the clock. And you look at just the history of this game, Texas State, 0-10 against Louisiana all time. So maybe they finally... It's double negative. Maybe they finally... I'll just keep going with it. Maybe they finally get a win in that series. We'll move down. South Alabama at Louisiana Monroe. South Alabama 2-3. ULM 2-2. This game's at 6 o'clock, ESPN+. South Bama, 12-point favorite in this game. And after what we saw from ULM, I think this game might be a little bit closer than what the experts think.
I love that. South Bama.
Yeah, South Bama.
South Bama. You know what? I'm going to have to say this. South Alabama will probably steamboat over ULM, to be honest with you. I get it.
That's what you're feeling?
Yes, I get it. Last game, they had a high-scoring game, but I don't know. I think South Alabama will steamboat ULM.
Yeah, let's say you look at what ULM will have to deal with defensively. Their DBs are going to have to do their best to limit Colin Lacey, the wide receiver for South Alabama. 4 straight 100-yard games. And you also see that you have LaDamian Webb. He didn't have such a great game a week ago. He's got 64 carries for 376 yards and 7 touchdowns on the season. I think they're going to try to get him back on track, and if it doesn't, then you're going to have a Carter Bradley show. And he's been off and on this year. He's maybe the most mid quarterback in the Sun Belt. Like, he is the definition of middle of the road. And I think he has the ability to get it going. And this would be the team you want to see it happen against. Exactly. If you're South Alabama, and if it does, then they will probably steamboat ULM.
Yeah, and as soon as South Alabama gets control of the clock, their time possession is great. ULM's going to have to, count their days. I don't know.
Not to count something. Hopefully it's not points on the board. We look down before we get into our game of the week. Old Dominion, they're 2-3. They're going to be going down to Hattiesburg facing a Southern Miss team that's 1-4 and in desperate need of a win. This game's 6 o'clock. Southern Miss favored by 1.5. I think this game could go either way. And you look at Old Dominion, it's the first thing is their quarterback battle that they've had going on. Can either Shields or Wilson protect the ball? because when you combine their stats, it's 9 touchdowns to 8 interceptions on the season.
I think, dude, Marshall in Old Dominion's game last week can give Old Dominion some hype around it. I think Southern Miss is not the best team this year. I think Old Dominion then the Monarchs are a lot better this year. And yeah, it just seems like Southern Miss is not getting out to the greatest start in the world. But Old Dominion has all the momentum right now.
Right, and they also have that kid we discussed, Kadarius Callaway. He's going to be a guy that if South Alabama doesn't limit, if he has another game even half as good as he did a week ago, they're going to be in trouble and staring down the barrel of a 1-5 start, and probably a coach being booted out the door at the end of the season.
Oh, 100%.
I think you're going to see Old Dominion have the same plan they did a week ago against Marshall, and that's just load the box and make Frank Gore Jr. get every yard his little legs can get him, because it worked on Rasheen Ali. Now, will it work against them? Probably, because I don't think their offensive line is as good. And you look at their quarterback, I think he's trending downward. That is Southern Miss's Billy Wiles.
Yep.
Just over 1,000 pass yards, 7 touchdowns to 5 picks, 52.6% completion percentage.
Not great.
No, I think Old Dominion's going to make him pass the ball in this game. And also for USM, let Rodriguez-Clark change the pace a little bit more, because if they can start getting east and west instead of just being an obvious north and south team with Frank Gore, either in the shotgun, dot in the eye, whatever, it's clear that whenever he's out there, he's going to be getting the ball between the tackles.
Yeah, I mean, going back on what you said about the coaching, Southern Miss's coach might be out the door again after the Old Dominion game, because, I mean, you look at the scores. Florida State, I get it, 66-13. Alcorn State, no, not Alcorn. Tulane, 21-3. Arkansas State, 44-37. And then Texas State, 50-36. Do you see a trend here, Brady?
High points.
High-scoring games. And that just tells me that your defense is trash.
And
it's
it was
good.
a year ago. They didn't have a lot of wins last year. I think they only pulled off 3. So, I mean, if you're digressing from that, sayonara, Coach X at Southern Miss, because I don't know the coach's name off the top of my head. But that game screams ugly. But one game that might be a little bit more interesting as we move down to our game of the week, Arkansas State. The Red Wolves are 3-2. Who thought we'd be here saying that?
Nope.
They're going down to play Troy in their building. They're 3-2 as well on the season. And this game's at 3 o'clock ESPN Plus. Troy opened as a 17-point favorite, which I think is about right. But I don't think they're factoring in how good Jalen Rayner can be in this game. But my biggest problem is that Troy, they limited Darian Granger of Georgia State, a guy that's really good with his legs and a decently accurate quarterback. They put enough pressure on Granger that caused a lot of issues. If they do that to a freshman quarterback in Rayner, this game could get on the ugly side.
Exactly. And I thought you were going to say the biggest problem is that Jalen Rayner still doesn't have a picture on ESPN. He's just a little gray.
That's just a problem that we'll have to live with probably until the end of the season.
Seriously. But yeah, I mean, going back to what you said, I think Arkansas State, they have their game plan needs to be score the ball on the first drive, because then that will shock Troy. That'll make them change their defensive scheme. They'll be like, crap, we were doing this the whole time. We need to change. Get Troy on their toes, questioning themselves right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm not one to know what the attendance numbers will be in that game, but you want to try and get that crowd out of it as quickly as you can and try and keep it as quiet for Rayner as possible on the offensive drives to go. You look at Arkansas State defensively, what are they going to stand a better chance against? Gunnar Watson in the passing game or stopping Kamani Vidal in the running game?
And that's what Troy needs to execute on, as well as exploiting the DBs that AState has. I mean, they aren't the best. And if Troy exploits that, they're going to be running all over the Red Wolves. But yeah, AState just needs this game really bad, and if they want a chance at a bowl game this year.
Absolutely. If they start giving up points early, you're going to see Rayner starting to get into desperation mode, and with the pressure that they're going to be putting on him, definitely on 3rd and longs, if you get into that case, it's going to be trial by fire.
Yeah.
I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and you know what? I think A-State needs to settle with giving him more protection, not just putting 5 up front. You need to put up maybe 6, maybe 7.
Yeah,
Get him
use
some
your tight end. Use Zach Wallace.
Exactly.
Your biggest running back.
Yes. Get him all the blocks he needs. Have him stay comfortable in the pocket, and give him or at least create a hole for him to run the ball. Because I mean, his legs are really good. Clear the receivers. Let him run all over the field and get the first down.
Yep, we've seen all we need to see from him here, but we'll see what he does on the road against a really tough defense to go against. But I mean, shoot, I don't even know if I want to make a score prediction on that game. But my heart, the first thing that popped into my head was 38-24 Troy.
I think it's gonna be really low scoring. I think it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be 23-13 Troy.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll put that on record. We won't really, actually. But no. We'll move down and we'll go ahead and get this debate segment underway. We're going to spin the metaphorical wheel that is in front of us, spinning it. Tick, 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 tick. Now, I'm not going to add sound effects with my own mouth, but we've got our underrated offensive player in the Sun Belt. Well, we discussed this a week ago. We're just transitioning the segment from the lost episode.
Right.
So, Easton, I'm going to let you go first because I think everyone in the audience might know who you're leaning towards on this.
Yes, I think the underrated offensive player this year has to be Jalen Raynor. Freshman coming in, and he's already making noise. I mean, we made this debate last week, and I think this game against UMass proves my point. This guy is very underrated, and I think he's gonna go from that category from underrated to actually he's not
known commodity.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this kid is making noise for himself, and if he can do this against Troy, this would be the biggest comeback story that Butch Jones has ever seen in his coaching career.
It might, because you never really saw that at Cincinnati or at Tennessee. It was either up or it was just straight down.
Yeah.
And then you look, I think another thing that might help him get to that known commodity status is the lack of production from Grayson McCall, because the Sun Belt's going to be starving for another dual threat quarterback. And you look at Jordan McLeod and Darian Granger. That's your other two options that you have. Cam Fancher's not that guy. And it leaves Jalen Raynor as that number one scrambler. If he can go in and beat Troy, I think he might be at that next tier.
Exactly. What goes up must come down. What McCall was up, and now he's down, so Jalen Raynor's back up.
Yep. And my guy, and it's going to stay the same. I thought about changing it, but wide receiver Derwin Burgess Jr., the junior wide receiver from Georgia Southern. And you look, the whole backstory with Derwin Burgess, he was brought in as a freshman under the option system before Clay Helton got there. So, I mean, I don't really know what an option wide receiver, like, if you're a wide receiver, why in the world would you want to go play for an option team? I mean, I understand sometimes it's just your only option, or you have a military background and you want to pursue that at an Air Force, Army, Navy, etc. But you look, before last week, he had 29 catches, 310 yards, 2 touchdowns, which put him on pace for 116 catches and 1,240 yards by the end of the season. And last week he had 2 touchdowns to help them win over Coastal. You also look this season, 8 catches, 124 yards at Wisconsin. And now he's been overshadowed because of the excellent play of Davis Brin at quarterback. But, man, little dude, 5'11", and he has been a red zone threat, apparently. I believe both of his touchdowns came in the red zone last week. I know one did for sure. But he's on the up and coming list, and I think he should be talked about just as highly as his quarterback companion, Davis Brin, and Caleb Hood, their other receivers right behind him. He's pretty solid in his own route.
Like I said last week, he's a smaller guy, not the biggest dude, and I could see Georgia Southern utilizing him as a Deebo Samuel type of player.
And that is what they've done.
Exactly.
They move him around a lot.
Exactly. And I love to see that. I mean, I'm looking at one of his highlights right now. He's taking a jet sweep off the motion, to the right.
Yep.
And I think that's great. Utilize that. You have that guy that's like, oh shoot, are they going to hand it off to him, or is he going to burn us downfield,
Right. And you look at mentioning Jamie Chadwell for the millionth time on this episode. But that's what they have with Aaron Bedgood, their wide receiver up at Liberty, watching the game against Sam Houston last night. He's a guy that they'll motion into the backfield and do that split Debo set that San Francisco likes to do. It's my team anyway, so I should know.
Yeah.
But it's tough to defend him. But whenever he's out there, he's just tough with his footwork. He's got really good burst. And I think he has the potential to be the leading receiver, or at least second. I don't know. Colin Lacey might end up leading receiving in the Sun Belt. But honorable mention, Ismail Mahdi at Texas State, the running back. Rodriguez Clark, the guy who cannot get enough carries, apparently, at Southern Miss. And I'm changing from Darian Granger, and I'm moving to Jordan McLeod as the other dual threat quarterback, just because Granger has fallen off and McLeod's not being talked about because James Madison's defense is just that tough.
Exactly. I totally agree with you on that one.
But I do believe that the sun is setting here on the Everything Under the Sun Belt podcast. We're going to look forward, see if Arkansas State can maybe pull a stunner against Troy this week. There's a few other college football games to look at. I don't have the list in front of me, but we'll be on the lookout for some upsets.
Right.
But from all of us here, I'm Brady Michael signing off along with
Easton John.
And we'll catch you guys next week.